When you're starting or growing a nonprofit program and you need to evaluate it to see if it's successful, how do you know to measure? This was a question a few of you brought up in the comments recently, and I actually think it's a great one. So we decided to make a video about it. In this Changemaker Cafe episode, we're going to talk about where to even begin thinking about this, figuring out how to evaluate whether your program is successful, how to identify your outputs and outcomes, and a few methods for collecting data and feedback. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content all about nonprofits, fundraising, social entrepreneurship, and more. And thank you to Click and Pledge for sponsoring this video. To begin thinking through evaluation for our nonprofit programs, we have to start with the end in mind. And what I mean by that is you want to start with your nonprofit's ultimate vision. This is your North Star. You might have heard of a nonprofit mission statement. Hopefully you already have one, and that'll describe what your organization does and how. But your nonprofit vision statement describes your ultimate why. So your vision statement is going to be a sentence that describes how the world would be if your nonprofit succeeded in its mission. So I envision a world where there's no war or there's no homelessness. And, obviously these are very big examples, but you get the idea. An example of a vision statement could be, our vision is that no child will go to bed hungry in our city. And every time you set out to create a new project or program, you should be asking yourself, will this program or project actually move the needle even a little towards that ultimate vision? And if the answer is no, you might need to change your program or how it works. For example, let's say your vision is that no child will go to bed hungry in your city, but your program focuses primarily on holiday meal drives that tackle the problem for a day. That could be a mismatch. Not that those programs aren't good too, they just don't match the vision that you stated using our example that every day children won't go to bed hungry. So instead, maybe you examine the problem deeply and learn that the poorest families in your city don't have access to affordable food near their homes. So then your program becomes launching food pantries in local schools and community centers to fill the gaps. But the question is, once you've designed a program or project, how can you actually tell if it's effective or not? What you're going to do is identify indicators of progress, sometimes called outputs and outcomes. Now, outcomes are defined as what has changed as a result from how it was before because of your efforts. You'll often see outcomes portrayed in metrics of change like percent difference or reductions or increases. Now, using our child hunger example, an outcome might be something like 50% more families than last year can access affordable groceries as a result of our programs. So you see, it's talking about change, what was different now than how it used to be. Now, outputs are a little different. They're defined as what did your organization get done that ultimately contributes to those outcomes. This might sound something like, we launched 5 new food pantries. It's important to track both outputs and outcomes because outputs will tell you what you actually accomplished, but outcomes tell you why what you accomplished mattered. If you build food pantries, but then nobody uses them, does it actually matter that you built them? So you have to examine both, and you have to do it regularly over time. I would say assessing things at least on a high level once per year. Let's talk a little bit more about outcomes and how you know what the right outcomes are for your organization. I would say it all starts by asking the question, what needs to be true for our long-term vision to happen? A great mental exercise here is to make a list. Write down everything you can think of that has to be true for that ultimate vision statement to be true. Using our example, what needs to be true for no child to go to bed hungry in our city? Let's list a few things. Well, children would have to have access to nutritious food every single day for our vision statement to happen. Families at risk of food insecurity would have to know about and be connected to available food resources that could help them. Places where children go, like schools or community centers, would have to have systems in place to be able to recognize when kids are at risk of hunger. And maybe the city would have to have policies and funding to support child hunger infrastructure and programs. I'm sure there's more, but if you think of some, be sure to share those in the comments. We'll add to the list. Now, these changes that I listed are likely to take several years, but we need to assess them every year to make sure we're still headed in the right direction, not going off course. So based on that, an outcome for 1 year might sound something like 40% of schools are using our organization's Identify Hunger Now toolkit to recognize when kids are at risk of hunger, up 20% from last year. Good job. Or the city increased its funding for childhood hunger programs by 30%. But you see, we're still talking about change, how things were before versus how they are now because of your organization's intervention and efforts. We're saying these things wouldn't have happened if your organization hadn't executed on its programs successfully. Now let's talk about those outputs. As I said before, outputs are the actual results of the services that you're doing in the short term, so what you're accomplishing each year. We need to think about what activities would we need to do to lead to some of the outcomes that we just mentioned. So let's play with our example a little bit more. In the example of 40% of schools are using our organization's Identify Hunger Now toolkit to recognize when kids are at risk of hunger. One obvious output I can think of is that you met with 15 schools to share the Identify Hunger Now toolkit. Because in order to reach that outcome of 40% of schools using it, you have to meet with a number of schools to make sure they even know that the resource exists. So does that make sense? Your outputs are what you did, but it doesn't show what changed. That's the outcomes, and you need both. Now, all of this, being able to articulate your outputs and your outcomes and your vision, all of it's critical for getting funding for your organization. But you'll also need an easy way to collect and track your donations for your fundraising efforts. So it's the perfect time to thank the sponsor of this video, Click and Pledge. With Click and Pledge, you're going to get a robust dashboard where you can plan fundraising campaigns and monitor your progress. You'll be able to customize your donation forms for your branding, have in-person fundraising features to collect donations at events, peer-to-peer fundraising that allows supporters to form teams and raise money, video fundraising with donation links embedded directly in your videos, text to give campaigns, donor outreach tools to improve retention, and a complete Salesforce integration and a lot of other integrations. Some platforms are going to charge more based on your organization's size, but Click and Pledge doesn't do that. Their pricing is going to stay the same even as your donor list increases. Nonprofits can really appreciate how there are no contracts and all of their solutions are included at no extra cost. You can learn more about Click and Pledge's fundraising solutions and get your first $25 monthly fee waived using the links below this video or this QR code here. Get in contact with their team. They'd be happy to answer any questions that you have or schedule a demo, or you can just give it a try right now. Okay, let's talk about how you're going to track all these outcomes and outputs. Once you've identified what the right ones are, you need to figure out the best data and feedback collection methods that are going to work for you to assess whether your programs are, like we said, actually achieving those outcomes and outputs. There are a few ways you might do this. You could track data. This is a great way to do this for outputs. You keep track of how many you serve using a database or even a spreadsheet for budget-friendly options. You can collect testimonials, stories from clients. This is really great for funding applications especially. Client surveys are a helpful tool as well, basically just asking your clients if you met their needs or changed their situations meaningfully. Focus groups are another way. Maybe you want more detailed or nuanced information about how your programs affected the lives of those you serve. You might bring together small groups of your clients and have them answer some of your deeper questions. You can also do a deeper analysis if you have the resources to get fancy with some technology. You can invest in evaluation processes like a cost effectiveness analysis to show how your program is saving your community money, or GIS mapping where you input data and then it displays what areas of your city are more impacted than others, and you can see all the patterns, and it's a great visual there to help you figure out where to target your efforts. Now, some of you who might have watched some of my past videos might have listened to this video and thought to yourself, this sure sounds like creating a theory of change, Amber. And you'd be exactly right. If you're not familiar, a theory of change is basically a document that serves as a roadmap illustrating how each aspect of your programs, from your actual services to the special approach or technique you might be using to deliver your services, leads to the ultimate long-term impact you want your organization to have. So just like what we talked about, a theory of change will include that vision or long-term impact, your outcomes, your outputs, and activities. So I actually do highly recommend that you create one as part of your process to evaluate your programs. And you can check out my other video for an in-depth tutorial on how to do that also. So that's it. That's basically the mental process you would go through to figure out how to evaluate your program's success or efficacy, as we say. I'm curious if you liked this sort of topic, if there are others you think we should cover, let me know in the comments. And if this video helped you out, do me a favor and hit like on it so that more nonprofit leaders can see this and will make the YouTube algorithm happy. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss our next episode. And don't forget, you can always get more content in my weekly newsletters that I have and resources on my website, changemakercafe.com. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Amber Melanie Smith, and I'll see you later.